I'm joined with Charreah Jackson. Charreah works at Essence Magazine. She's the senior editor and she's also the founder of Boss Bride. So I can't wait to interview her all about content. Charreah, thank you so much for joining me in beautiful, beautiful Amsterdam.
So beautiful.
It's so nice and we're inside. So after this, we're going to be going and having a couple of drinks.
Yes, we are. We can see the sunlight, you can see the canal. It's a good spot.
Oh, well, thank you for taking time out because I really want to kind of quiz you a little bit all about great content because, you know, we're creating content all the time, whether it's blogs, whether it's podcasts, you know, whatever we're doing, we're constantly creating content. So for you, tell us a little bit, first of all, about your kind of role at Essence and what you do.
Sure. So I am senior editor for lifestyle and relationships at Essence. So I cover or manage content for all of our lifestyle categories. That's health, relationships, food, travel. So it's all the things that you love, all the things that bring you joy. I kind of say I do career content as well. And so it definitely is a wide range. And so I think for any content or storyteller, you're trying to say, what is my unique point of view? So even when I first got this expanded role, I've been promoted probably about twice in the last maybe 3 years and have went from just doing relationships to doing all of our lifestyle content. And for me, my approach has always been sort of holistic and also looking at intersections. That's something as a content creator I'm always excited about, like how the two worlds who might not seem like they're connected, what happens when they meet up. And so even with Boss Bride, that started sort of from me because I was really creating content around careers and making sure you have success in the workplace, but also doing a lot of relationship content and dating and sex. And so I really started to see these things directly impacted each other. So your decisions on how you date and who you date and how long you stay in a relationship definitely impact your career. And the reverse is true too, depending on how hard you go in your career, it will impact, you know, your personal life as well.
So there's lots of different kind of ways that you can merge stuff, isn't there? If you're talking about relationships, it doesn't mean that you can't bring in lots of different elements into it.
Absolutely, especially because I'm covering sort of a lifestyle category where it might not be as much. Well, there's a lot of breaking news in it, but a lot of the stories I'm doing, it's not the first time someone has written about going on a date or getting married or acing that job interview or updating your LinkedIn page. So a lot of times it's topics that have been covered so extensively that I'm always trying to say, well, what's the new idea? What's the fresh idea? I get so many pitches from writers as an editor, and the writers that really catch my attention and I say, hey, let's work with them, are really the people who have a creative new way to cover something or really say, that's a fun take on something that we could apply to our content.
I love that because it's so difficult to come up with something truly unique now, isn't it? You know, you sit there and you have like your laptop and you're like, right, I'm going to think of something that's never been covered before and it's near impossible. So as you say, it's about trying to find that kind of, put your own spin out on it.
Absolutely. And then as you go, you'll start to cultivate your voice and you'll start to really be able to listen to the people who consume your content. It's such a fun time to be a content creator because for so long you created something, but you weren't able to really get as much feedback around and to know instantly what something is doing. So of course, for our website at Essence, there's a heat map. So we know what stories take off. We know what trends are bubbling. You look at hashtags on social media to say, oh, here's what people are interested in. Here's what people are talking about. So there's so many ways for you as a content creator not to just start blind, but to really hear from your audience and see what's sort of bubbling. And then sometimes you do take a risk or you do trust, hey, in my gut, I have a great idea. Here's something that I know could do well.
I'm so intrigued by your job and I'm so envious of your job as well. But I'd love to know, so like obviously you write a lot of pieces and sometimes they'll go to your editor. You know, do they sometimes come back kind of with lots of different changes or comments to me? How does the process work?
Absolutely. And it's funny because I'm just finished writing. So Boss Bride, of course, started as a website, now has a Facebook group at bossbridetribe.com. You can join our community. But also I just, last year I got a book deal to write about sort of these topics I was exploring as far as career and relationships. And so I'm an editor in the magazine space where I was in the website where I assign writers, but I'm also, as a first-time author, working with an editor to see, you know, what that feedback might be. And I would say from an editor writer relationship, it really is about having the strong idea and the support there, but also sometimes as the creator of the content, you drive it. And so even as an editor, it's not from another writer's voice to become my voice as much as it's be cohesive with sort of the brand I'm working with, but also to let that unique voice come through. And so a lot of times it's about sort of style, but also sometimes you're a little bit close to something, so you can't always see the whole. So I love a good edit. And I've been very fortunate in my career to work with some extraordinary visionary editors who really have shifted how I create content. Because the reality is, if you're creating content and we're calling it content, it's not a diary entry, it's not a journal entry, it's not just for you. And so you can't be so in a bubble that it's like, well, I get it. It's not enough that you get it if your audience doesn't quickly understand what you're saying. So the second it becomes content, that means there's an audience. And so you always want to be thinking about, how does my audience engage with what I'm creating? And the best creators are always thinking about their audience. So there might be some phrases that I really love, but if it doesn't sit well with my audience, if it doesn't read clear to her, because even one of my favorite parts of being a magazine editor is working on cover lines, which is the lines you see on a magazine when you're walking by the newsstand. And we only get a few seconds. When someone's walking by that newsstand, you only get a few seconds to catch your attention. And so sometimes in our cover lines meetings, there would be things that were so clever. And I think I'm very clever, and one of my strengths is putting words together and phrases. But sometimes there'll be things that came to mind like, oh, this is so cute. But sometimes it's like, it's clever, but it's not clear. And so sometimes as a creative, you are willing to sometimes sacrifice some of the creativity of it so that it's clear to your audience and they are able to quickly digest. Especially now with people scrolling and moving so fast, you want to make sure it really grabs their attention. So from a content perspective, for me, I'm always trying to hit you in the heart for my content. Like if I don't get your emotions started, if I don't make you click this headline, then I need to put more heart in it a lot of time to really make it something that you would be interested in.
Fantastic. And have you got any kind of advice or tips for kind of people who are writing? Maybe it is that they're writing for their own personal blog. Maybe they're submitting pictures to magazines, whatever it might be. Have you got any kind of tips for them?
I say study, because I love to write. I just finished 70,000 words on a book. But the truth is, I've read way more than I write. It's one of the things I love about Charlie Lester, who's your co-founder, is that it's really about reading. I feel like the best creatives have taken in so much content that really has refined their thought process. And so if you want to be better at creating content, really elevate and expand how much good content you're taking in to really say, here's what's that really has fed me as a creative, and it gives me more ideas to say, oh, here's how I could have done that differently. And then practice, right. We all have a voice, we all have a unique experience. And so even getting to Boss Bride, it wasn't probably until a few years into my career that I really was able to sort of better identify what was my voice, what made my approach differently. At that time, I was doing a lot of dating content, but for me, it was about, I'm a unique woman and I wanted unique things that spoke to my experience. So me going to a first date was probably after a busy day at work. So it's like, it was a different reality. I felt like I was this new, I was a part of this group of millions of us, of this modern woman. And so a lot of the older or past insight didn't really apply to the life I was currently living in with so much technology and social media. And so for a while I went looking for that content, and after a while sometimes it's like, oh, you're the person who should write it. So if you are a person who really wishes there was this book that talked about something, or there was this website that really combined art and whatever, like you probably, whatever you think is missing, you're probably the person to create it. So I didn't set out to write a book because I thought I had all the answers. I set out to write a book because I wanted the answers, and I finally said, okay, I will do it. And that's the other thing, go for it before you think you're ready. So I launched Boss Bride. I was in a relationship, we were talking about marriage, but I wasn't engaged, and I was okay to say I knew that was the name, that was what it was, even though I personally didn't feel all the way ready for it. I just went with it, and over time it really just grew with me.
And how did the book kind of come about? So I know that there'll be lots of kind of budding authors who are watching this. So what was the process for you in kind of getting that book deal, that elusive book deal that so many of us want, one day?
It's
Talk
coming.
us through.
It's coming.
It's coming, yeah. We're positive thinking. But how did it happen for you?
Sure. So originally I joined a writing group, which really helped me, and seeing these other people who were like, because we all say like, I want to write a book one day, and then one day became this is the day. And so I joined a writing group, and just being around other people who were passionate and committed really helped me say, okay, I could do this. And so I put together a proposal to potentially pitch to a publisher and an agent, because a lot of times for the traditional route, you do have a agent who will pitch you to publishers. And so I had a friend who I was talking to who worked in book publishing, and she sent my proposal to my agent. And this was about 4 years ago, so it's been a while. It's not, and that was just for me. It doesn't take everyone that long, but for me, like I mentioned, I was still growing into the woman I needed to be to write the book. So I had the smarts and I had to grow the heart. It's kind of what I feel happened. And so, but we worked, and over time, I really crafted a stronger message, because you really do want to research your market, because I wanted to do a relationships book, which is a saturated market. There's so many relationship books out there. And so I really had to do my homework to say, what made this book different? What message are you saying that's not already in 10 books on the shelf? And how will you frame it and focus it so it feels fresh and different? And so that really was my work to do. And last year, my agent and I said, look, we're ready. The proposal is ready. I'm ready. And we started pitching. And I would also say this to anyone, listen, you only needed one yes. So there were a couple of publishers who I wanted to work with who were like, we're working with some other celebrity on this book that's a little too similar, or we think you're great, but this part isn't totally what we're thinking. And so about a little over a year ago, I got an email from my agent, St. Martin's Press wants your book, and it was really exciting. And so I just would say keep going, because it definitely, you only need one yes. I only have one yes, and here it is. And so it's been a great journey, but it's really trusting yourself and your voice to know there's something, because that's the thing. If you come to my apartment in New York, I have a huge bookcase. Most of us do. If you're watching this, you probably have a lot of books. So yes, there are a lot of books out there, but there's so much space for us to have books. So I don't ever feel like, oh, I can't do it because that idea has been done.
When you said that you got the email that you had got the book deal, how did you feel? Because even as you were telling it to me then, I could feel myself like just wanting to scream for you. It must have been amazing.
It was, and I mean, I'll be very honest, it was such a emotional experience, just because, like I mentioned, I had gotten a lot of no's. I had gone through really being in a space in the relationship I was in at the time where I kind of was like in a space where I was ready to move on and not sure, and just like, okay, this isn't working, but I'm not totally sure if I'm really ready to step forward. So it was such an emotional time already for me, and I'd already sort of gotten more spiritually quiet, just to be more, quiet with myself and really be in a space where I could hear more from God. And so when it happened, I knew, like, okay, it was just a universe confirmation that I was covered, that everything I was working out. So I knew it wasn't me, because I had prayed about it and I had just kind of let it go. Like, I'm not going to stress about it. If it's meant to happen, it will happen. And so I think once I sort of surrendered and just let it go, when it did happen, literally 8 days later, I was like, oh, wow, this is what happens when you just are courageous enough to do your part and then, let go and trust that everything is working out for you. But it was one of those things where I think for a lot of us, we want something, we're like, oh my gosh, it happens. And you're like, oh, this is just the real work beginning. Yeah. So it wasn't, in some ways it sounds like this finish line, but it was really just a new starting line, because all of a sudden it was like, oh, this is for real. And so even being a magazine editor didn't fully prepare me for what the author experience would be like. So it's definitely a different world. So even as we all, go to new levels, or we check off a lot of boxes, you have a successful entrepreneur career, it's also a new reality when you're starting to try something new. So I think for a lot of us, it's a good feeling, especially if you've already achieved some things. You'd be like, ooh, I have butterflies again. And so it felt amazing.
Oh, Charreah, thank you so much. I'm so inspired by you, and so much great advice for female entrepreneurs out there creating content, and to keep doing what they do, keep doing what they love.
Keep doing it, because there's people need it. There's so much stories that haven't been told yet. There's space.
We all have one, right?
Yes.
We all have a story to tell.
We do.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.